Good day everyone, welcome back to Malicious Compliance subreddit, where people conforming to the letter but not the spirit of a request. With no further ado, let's get orgasm with rKush. The first story of today's video was posted by Maliciouscompliance. You want the police involved? Okie dokie. So, the day after Christmas about 10 years ago, my brother called me up and asked me for some assistance setting up some of his new computer equipment. He lived down the road from a store that specialized in discount China, so naturally it was extremely busy. Busy as in cars were parked everywhere, including on the grass in front of the store, and it was impossible to see around the corner if someone wanted to pull out the furthest exit. Unfortunately, the speed limit, 15 miles per hour, is also extremely high on the road even if you have to try to accelerate to get to 50 miles per hour by the time you pass the store. So I decided to play it safe and was doing roughly half the speed limit, perhaps 30 miles per hour, while going around the corner of this store. Even at this speed, of course, some guy decided to pull out without checking. I couldn't stop in time to avoid hitting him. Now, I was driving an older Mitsubishi that already had some damage, and he had a small dent in his fender. And come on, it's still Christmas, right? So I get out of the car, take a look at the damage, and turn around to see a furious, older, red-faced gentleman in front of me. Right after I tell him that it doesn't look like much damage, so there's no need to contact the police, he proceeds to scream in my face about how I was speeding and this is all my fault. Oh no, honey. A young woman driving by herself may appear to be easily intimidated, but I was trying to be nice. If you want the police involved, let's do it, buddy. I called the non-emergency line, explained there was a very minor car accident and that the other driver was insisting that it was my fault, so I would feel better if the police were involved. The dispatcher got my information, stopped for a moment, and then quietly thanked me for calling the appropriate number. 911 was hardly necessary, and told me that she also felt it would be safer for me if the police were dispatched. After a 30-minute wait, an officer showed up at the scene. I, not being a total moron, sat quietly in my car and waited for him to come over to me. The other driver felt it was necessary to leap out of his vehicle and run over to the officer and start screaming and gesturing wildly. I didn't catch what was said, but I did see the look on the cop's face, and I was getting more and more amused. After being told to get back into his car, the cop came over to me and asked me what happened. I told him what was going on, and that not only had I not deliberately sped up to the speed limit, I had slowed down because of how busy the business was. He nodded and went back to measure the skid marks on the road, and confirmed he believed I was doing about 25 and complimented my thinking on safe driving in this specific situation. He then proceeded to write the other driver a ticket, and the other driver pulled out of the parking lot a second time with his window down, flipping me off. At this point, the cop came over to me, explained that he wrote it up as the driver's fault for more than $1,000 due to the damage on his fender. He also stated that, "Darling, I don't say this often, but I believe you should take that man's insurance company for every dime you can get." Guys, stories like these are why I now have a dash cam as of a couple of years ago. Thankfully, I haven't had to put it to use yet, but it's nice knowing I would have hard evidence of douchebaggery on any other driver's part. Moving on to the next story, posted by favorite number is 121, with the title, "Stop working so hard, don't mind if I do." This is ongoing, so keeping things vague. Background: I work in a corporate setting on a mixed team. The team is made up of a few different roles, each with its reporting structure. I'm the only person reporting up to my manager on my team. I'm pretty much on my own for the day-to-day. The story: for the first half of last year, I worked for a senior manager. That will be his name, on a mixed team. Some people on that team were rock stars, others were not. I've always been a go-getter, perfectionist kind of person. So on that team, I didn't let things slip through the cracks, which meant that sometimes, often, I did things beyond my specific role. Halfway through last year, I moved to a new team and thus reported to awesome manager for the second half. Again, I'm the only one for my role on this new team. Cue the new year, and with it, performance reviews. This is the one time outside of the promotion that you can get a raise. I've busted my butt on the new team and everyone I work with has shown appreciation. And this company did well last year, so funds are not a problem. Awesome manager is the one conducting my review, and they asked senior manager for feedback since I did report to him for the first half. Awesome manager says I'm doing an amazing job. Keep it up. Here are some suggestions. A senior vice president of the company loves showing off something I made. Senior manager's notes say not to pick up every piece. Allow others to fail sometimes so that they can grow and learn and better themselves. Then awesome manager informs me that the average raise percentage is 3%. Awesome managers tells me they recommended I get a 4% raise. They then tell me that all of the senior managers met for the whole organization to coordinate, and they're coming out of that meeting and I'm getting 3%. Awesome manager cannot get a straight answer why my rate was lower. So since senior manager was part of that meeting where they cut down my raise, I'm following his direction. Take on less. I've cut back to okay employee work ethic and I'm letting others fail and grow. Since I'm alone in my role for the team, an awesome manager just got moved elsewhere. I have another new manager. No one can call me out. In the meantime, I'm spending that extra energy prepping my resume for more reasons than just this. TLDR, old manager said me working so hard was a bad thing, then had a say in my pay raise decreasing, so I'm following his suggestion and putting my energy elsewhere. A couple of clarification. Yes, the average raise really just keeps up with inflation. Awesome manager did not promise me the higher percentage. They explained the whole story in that same meeting, basically giving me a peek behind the curtain. And I don't think senior manager was malicious. He just didn't fight hard enough for me and he's the one that did have a say. Guys, the thing about corporate reviews and wage increases is, like everything else, there's a budget. All the reviews were done and the wage total increase calculated. The total was over budget, so things get pruned till it's within budget. The total was over budget, so things get pruned till it's within budget. I've been screwed more than once with this system, so this is not uncommon, guys. Moving on to the next story. Work is 8 to 4 only. Posted by Prolestory. Not me, but my coworker, and I'm super proud of them. The past few years I've been putting up firm boundaries with work after being screwed over a few times, including not being expected to answer emails or do assignments evenings and weekends. It's taken a long time, but I've learned my worth and that my time is valuable. Our company has about 200 employees, but I work most closely with one other person, who I've been encouraging to do the same. We were all put on remote work since last March, and recently the building opened again with the expectation that we would start back in person. I'll give props to them. They've done a ton of work to get the building cleaned, the air filters updated, enforcing masking, etc. However, HR at first talked a lot about how they would be willing to be flexible since most schools are still closed and people needed childcare worked out, and that they would grant accommodations with people who had health concerns. Yet that didn't play out. In my situation, I had a unique childcare concern that had a simple solution, but they refused to budge. Long story short, I needed to start 30 minutes later and was told no. Several other coworkers have shared similar stories of not getting any flexibility whatsoever. My coworker has several health issues and requested to work an alternate schedule and was told, the job is 8 to 4, so that's when you must be there. Understandably, they were upset. We've both been there well over a decade and it's kind of a slap in the face to dedicate yourself to a place that talks up community and family and then told no after being promised flexibility. Here's the malicious compliance. The company handles missed time by covering in-house. So for instance, if someone has a meeting at a certain time or calls in sick, someone who has a break or lunch covers them and gets paid a little stipend on it. We're talking like $20. Not much, but if you take a few extras over a week, it can add up to a nice little bit in your pay. My coworker coordinates all this and does it on Sunday for the upcoming week. Even though they don't work on Sunday, they would say it only takes about an hour to do. And it makes everyone's life so much easier since everyone walks on Monday morning knowing who is covering when, so it's worth it. Can you see where this is going? Upset at the lack of accommodation, my coworker decided to take HR's word for it. They stopped sending the coverage email on the weekend and did it at 8 sharp on Monday. It was like the end of the world. Everyone was scrambling. Such a little thing to make life convenient, but they refused now to do anything outside of work hours. They told me that the following weekend, managers were asking for it throughout Saturday and Sunday, but they ignored the emails. On Monday, they sent it at 8 sharp again. By the afternoon, the head boss had asked them to please resume doing it on the weekend, and they are now getting the extra hour paid by the company. I loved it. Take care of your employees and they take care of you. Give a little, get a little. Here is some extra info. 1. My coworker doesn't have a disability but is nearing retirement age and has some minor medical concerns that could make catching COVID very complicated. From what I understand, they requested to continue remotely and I'm not surprised that was denied. While their role could be done at home, with people back in the building it wouldn't make much sense. They do a lot of the front office stuff where my role is more in the background. I could do my job with no problem going in only once a week, but their role does need to be on site while people are there. I believe they had asked to do some days at home or half days at home. That would work if HR had let them. 3. It seems from what I gathered, only 2 people were granted remote accommodations. One person I know has some complicated medical issues, so that made sense to me. Most people asking for flexibility have roles that, like mine, don't necessitate being on site. I was told that my requested accommodation would be unfair because everyone needs to be treated equally, and I get that. Except most people work with clients and I don't. My role is completely internal support. Others like me do back-end stuff or support in other ways who were denied what I consider minor accommodations in the spirit of fairness, but would make life a million times easier. 4. To explain a bit about the shift coverage, people would submit what they needed and my coworker figures out based on the schedules that week who can cover. They make a calendar of sorts too for people to sign up if they want extras. They do this at home because it's easier since our office is in the middle of everything and there are tons of interruptions. We're right by the copy machines and the front door too, so it makes it even harder to work sometimes. There are several tasks they like to just take home and do, because it would take 20 minutes at home as opposed to 3 hours on site, with people popping in for this or that. One good thing about enforced social distance is a stop to this, so they don't mind doing a few things at home and never have. It was more the sting of being told, you work or you don't, especially after management said again and again in the weeks leading up to returning that they'd be willing to work with us and be understanding with hardships. You know what? There's nothing more expensive than a cheap payroll department. Next story, posted by Vitamin Fat. Happy anniversary, B-word XOXO. I worked as a receptionist/customer service person at an audiologist for the first half of my 20s. This bummer B-word comes in for batteries for her hearing aids and I look her name up in the system. See her type of hearing aids and get her the correct batteries called 675S. She looks at the packet and says they're the wrong battery type. I show her on the computer the type of batteries and place them in her hearing aids and the hearing aids works. Any other type of battery would be too small, hence not work, and also get stuck anyway. But she insists, no, it has to be P675. This just says 675. And I'm trying to explain to her it's the same thing. The manufacturers just changed the packaging so the P isn't there anymore. And she keeps going on about how her audiologist kept hammering in that it has to have P for power. I show her the back of the packaging that has the P on it, but it's still not enough and it doesn't look like the ones that work. Then she goes on about how the audiologist would know more about batteries than just a receptionist. And how would I know? I'm just a receptionist. Mind you, she's a difficult client and we all know her at the center. Her audiologist is in the next room sending me chats saying, I never freaking said that because it's 15 minutes before close on a Friday and we just want to go home and her audiologist doesn't want to go to speak with her because it'd be more time wasted. I'm like, you know what? Fine. So I go in the back and get expired batteries with the old packaging on because the good ones with the old packaging were all gone already and give them to her, and since these were the ones she wanted, I am now closing the center. I wrote alert notes for the next person who deals with her about how she didn't want to take fresh new batteries because the packaging was different. So she was all happy with herself and leaves. The weekend goes by. I didn't work at that center again for a week because I was at another center, but I check up her notes and it said, client very frustrated and upset today. Had 50th anniversary weekend with friends and family and couldn't hear a thing because batteries weren't working. Did packaging training with the customer to clarify batteries in new packaging will work. Hope you enjoy your anniversary. B-word XOXO. Now to the last story of the day, posted by Shadow of Light. Stop waking up at 6. Okay then. When I was a kid, probably 7 to 12, I routinely wake up at 5 or 6 in the morning with no alarm, perfectly rested, and decided I'd just go play some RuneScape before school. I was homeschooled at the time, so I had a good couple of hours before I was supposed to start. For some reason, my mom had a problem with this. She had a lot of problems with a lot of things, but that's another rant for my therapist. So naturally, she decides to tell me that I can't wake up at 6 anymore. So I thought, as you probably do, that she was being stupid. But of course, not being brave enough to tell her so, went into my bedroom and set my alarm for 6:01 instead. When she woke up the next day and found me on the computer, she's of course started screaming at me. I waited patiently for her to stop and then proudly announced that I had not disobeyed her. I had woken up at 6:01 instead. My victory was short-lived, as I then got my ass beat and was grounded. I never was allowed to wake up early again, and of course I am now a lazy adult who would rather sleep as much as possible. Also, it wasn't because I played video games, it was solely the waking up part. Never had issues with school because of it. Was never tired. Wasn't loud in the morning, didn't wake her up. She was just being narcissistic. People, this kind of reminds me of how as a minor, my bedtime was 8. Until I was 16, then it was 9. And how it baffled me when my parents were surprised and angry that I routinely woke up at 5. What? Going to bed early makes you wake up earlier? Inconceivable. And that brings me to the end of our video today. Hope you reach your orgasm with rKush. Good day, everyone.